Hey everybody, Sam here, also known as Mr. Stainless, and I thought it was about time I made a new Skull and Bones video. It's been a while since I've actually made any form of content on Skull and Bones, and the main reason for that has primarily been because there hasn't really been anything to talk about. Recently though, Skull and Bones has kind of come up in the news for kind of all the wrong reasons. The game has been delayed, and more recently we just lost Justin Farren, the game's creative director. He hasn't died, he's just left the game and Ubisoft and has moved on. But as with these kinds of announcements, what has happened is that people on the forums, on Reddit, and the press as well have kind of been spurred up through these juicy pieces of information and are beginning to ask, is this game dead? So as someone who I like to think is quite knowledgeable in the game and who is in communication with the folks who are making it, I kind of thought that I would tackle these questions and let you know my perspective on the whole situation and let you know my thoughts on whether Skull and Bones is dead or not. But before we get into that, if you are someone who is interested in Skull and Bones, do be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I try to make a new Skull and Bones update video whenever I can and whenever there is actually news to keep you all updated on. So, Skull and Bones has been pushed back to 2019-2020, and Justin Farren, the game's creative director, has left the game and Ubisoft as a company. So what does this actually mean? Is the game dead? Is this a sign that things are just slowly falling apart? No, there are actually really good reasons for all of this. So to start off with the game delay, a number of you have been asking me about this in the YouTube comments of my other Skull and Bones videos and asking me to give my thoughts on it. I'm finally getting around to doing it, but basically the main reason for this is Ubisoft didn't need to release Skull and Bones this year. So whenever this announcement actually originally came out, a number of content creators and news outlets basically ran with this information and said this clearly means that Ubisoft Singapore is struggling and that the game is in a lot of trouble and it's not very good. That's not the case whatsoever. The game could be awful. I don't know, I haven't played it. I've seen reviews of folks who have played the E3 demos and they said that it's been really fun. So I don't think that's the main reason. If people had actually read Ubisoft's fiscal report, they actually gave a very clear and succinct reason as to why Skull and Bones has been delayed to 2019. And they basically said this: so, in line with previous practices and in view of the acceleration of our digital transformation, growth in back catalogue sales and excellent momentum of recent releases, Ubisoft has decided to give itself more time to develop Skull and Bones to offer players an even more engaging experience. So what this means is Ubisoft's older titles are continuing to sell well, their new titles are making a lot of money, and most likely the digital side of the company, like the South Park Phone Destroyer app and microtransactions as well, I would assume, is probably included in their digital transformation category, is likely making them quite a bit of money, and their end of year profits were already looking healthy enough. Now, this is actually kind of a common practice, and more common than you would think. You'll see this in the film industry too, where a company will delay the release of a film until the next tax or fiscal year, because they know that they've already made enough profit to positively affect share prices, and equally, they don't want to make so much profit that they just get taxed to kingdom come, so they'll let their next hit launch in the next fiscal year just to make sure that they get off to a good start. So basically what this could mean is that Ubisoft actually thinks that Skull and Bones is going to be a kind of breakaway hit, and they're actually thinking that Skull and Bones could generate enough money for the company in the next fiscal year to actually help boost their profits as well. And that is actually somewhat exciting. The fact that it's been delayed shouldn't necessarily be something that we all kind of get down about, but not only does it give the developers more time to work on the title, it equally could mean that the title is better than we think it is. So the second topic is Justin Farren's departure from Skull and Bones and Ubisoft as a company. And this one was a little bit more of a shock, really, whenever I heard the news, because Justin is a great figure in the Skull and Bones community, and he's been so active on the Discord, on the subreddit, kind of just answering questions and just having a little bit of a laugh, and equally kind of being a good sport. Justin gets memed so much in the Skull and Bones community, primarily for wearing his scarf at E3. It is probably the one thing that most people will remember him by, I don't know if that's a good thing or a really depressing thing, but it's been tough to kind of hear that he was going to be leaving us. But when you kind of start to dig deeper and look at the reasons why he's leaving, and equally compare this to some of the other creative directors in Ubisoft's history, it isn't really that shocking. So this is actually pretty common to see a creative director depart from a game once it is far enough along in development. Now, Jason Vanderberg did the exact same thing with For Honor. He was the creative director of For Honor. He was also more or less the face of the game, very similar to Justin as well. Whenever I heard the news that Justin was leaving, it kind of just drew parallels to Jason's departure as well, because Jason was always the guy who was on stage at E3 for Honor. He was a recognizable face and figure in the For Honor community, and was very active in it as well. And he left the game and Ubisoft just before the game released, and I think a lot of people equally looked to that and thought, oh, this guy's just left just before his game is launched. That's not a good sign. But it was actually because his job was done. You know, like he'd crafted this vision for the game. It was now about to release. There was nothing else for him to do, and he wanted to move on to the next challenge. And I think it's a very similar thing here with Justin Farren. I think at the end of the day, the folks who take on the roles of creative directors in the gaming industry like to be making games, and for Justin, it could just be that the vision he had for Skull and Bones is crafted and implemented now, and it's just going through a lot of balancing and refinement until we get our hands on it in 2019, and just saw it as a good time to move on. Aside from that, Justin actually did release quite a lengthy statement as to why he was leaving and his thoughts and feelings on leaving as well. I'm just going to read out one paragraph of that statement, which I think kind of has the most relevant information for you guys who are trying to figure out why he's left and what he's going on to. And he said the following: "As for me, I'll be moving towards a different role, reuniting with old friends and colleagues, working on a very personal and yet unannounced endeavour. As Skull and Bones moved towards launch, my role had evolved to being much more event-focused, media-driven, and less day-to-day game development. The one thing I love more than anything in my job is helping developers make amazing games, helping them with the features, content, structure, and vision every day. It's what makes me most happy and fulfilled, and I'm going to continue to evolve and grow myself in this area. I love making games and can't imagine a better job." I think this is probably the main reason why we've seen Justin leaving. I think, like I said, the vision that he was crafting for Skull and Bones was more or less in place, and it was just down to a stage of refining the game over and over again until it launches. And Justin's role had moved from kind of being the guy who spearheads and crafts this experience to being the guy who they kind of roll out for interviews and put on stage at E3. And it was less about making games and more about talking about the games that he had made. And I can understand why that might be frustrating for someone in his position to go from such a creative role to kind of being more of a figurehead, really. So in summary, is Skull and Bones dead? Not at all. I'm not worried about any of this stuff whatsoever. Does it suck that the game got pushed back for another year? Sure. Does it suck that Justin is leaving? Absolutely, but I don't think that this is any indication that the game is in any trouble or that it's going to die. I think, if anything, Skull and Bones is kind of going to have a second wind, and over the next year, we're on the run-up to release, we're going to see a lot more momentum behind this title, and hopefully it won't be very long until we get to see more footage and hear more information about the game as well. But folks, as always, I would love to know your thoughts on all of this, so do let me know down in the comments below what you think of Skull and Bones, of Justin leaving, and just this whole situation as well. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But in the meantime, if this is the first time you've come across my channel, do feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. And until next time, have a great week, and I'll speak to you all soon.